Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. In today's next installation of the How to Make a Corset series, I'll be showing you how to take your measurements so that you can draft your own corset pattern. So you will just need 3 items: a pen, a pencil, and a measuring tape. Optionally, you can also use a piece of twine. I will show you how that comes in later. But let's get started. You're going to want to wear a tight-fitting camisole and some tight-fitting leggings, or whatever you prefer. So let's go down to our piece of paper and I'll show you how I set up taking measurements, because I am a very visual person and I found this is the best way for me to not get confused with numbers. Alright, so I like to draw a very cartoony torso, like so. Now we are going to be doing an underbust, so we are going to be focusing on this measurement, the waist measurement, the widest hip, and then sometimes you can also do the iliac crest if you find that you get a lot of pinching. From there, I also like to make a little vertical line there and there. Again, you can also do a slight notation for the iliac crest, which is the hip bone. And you can also go down for how far down you want it to go, how far up you want it to go, and then we also want to do the back. So again, waist, underbust, iliac, hip, and then you can say how far up you want it to go. For instance, these are the wing bones. I'll show you why that's important later. And how far down you want it to go. So we can write front here. We can write back here. That way we are orientated properly. And let's get started with our measurements. Now we're going to start measuring. The first thing we're going to measure is our underbust. For men, this is just under the pecs. For ladies, this is just under the bust. How eloquent. But if you are wearing a bra, this is easiest to find because it is just the underside of the bra band. So you're going to take your measuring tape, find the 1 on your measuring tape, bring it around your body. Make sure it does not twist. We don't want any twisting. And make sure it is parallel to the ground all the way around. And you're going to take a look at what it says when you are at your lowest lung capacity. So I'm about a 30 at my lowest lung capacity. Now I'm going to breathe in. And at my highest lung capacity, I'm about a 32. You want to pull a little tight, but you don't want to squeeze. So I'll show you again. Just so you feel it around. A little bit of a tug, but not like squeezing. So I'm going to put those 2 measurements on for our underbust. So 30 to 32. From there, we're going to find our waist. Now this is usually the hardest part, especially if you are a curvier built person, but you're going to find the top of your hip bone right underneath your rib cage, generally about 1 inch above your belly button. So what you can do is you can put your hands on your hips and do the little teapot dance, and that is right where your natural waist is. You can see it on me. It's also the smallest part of my figure. So right there. If you're having a hard time finding it, you can also tie a string around your waist and find the smallest part. Now we're going to measure. Again, find your 1. And again, we want it completely parallel all the way around, no twisting. And you can pull a little tight, but not too tight, because that's where we're going to put our reduction. So I am about 28 and a half, 29. So I'll put 28 and a half. If you find that your hip bones get pinched a lot in clothing, or they're very prominent, or you find that they are almost larger than the widest part of your hip, then you will want to measure that. So you're going to find where your hip bones jut out, those tough, bony angle parts. So that for me is right about there. You can also feel for the top of the hip bone, and it's going to be the apex of that curve. So you can measure, again, find your 1, completely straight around. And I am at a 34. Now we're going to find the widest part of our body, and that is, generally speaking, the hips for ladies. So I can see in the mirror here, the widest part of me is about here, and it's generally around the bum too, so right around there. So again, find your one, bring it around, make sure it's completely parallel, no twisting. And I'm about 35 and a half. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So again, write it down. So now that we have found all of our horizontal measurements, we need to find our vertical measurements. And we are going to be orienting everything in terms of its relation to the waist. So if you are having a hard time finding your waist measurement, or you really just want to be super accurate, which is always a good thing, tie a piece of string around your waist, and you can even do it a little tight, that way you really get a good idea of where your waist is. So put the one right up to your underbust, right underneath the bra band, and stand up nice and tall, and I am at a 5.5. So do 5.5. Now we're going to do from the waist down to the widest part of the hip. So going along the side here, we're going to put it right at the waist, the one at the waist, bring it down to here, and I am actually going to put my finger about where it is because it's a little hard to bend and see, and if we bend, that can change our measurements. So right about there, I am at a 7. 7, 7. Now, if you have a prominent iliac crest or your hip bones pinch, then you can also do from the waist to the iliac crest, which is about there, and that is 3 on me. 3. Now, depending on the style that you do, you can either have a flat front, you can have a heart-shaped front, you can have a front that goes up like this, and generally an underbust won't go much higher than that. So we are going to measure just how far up we can have it go. Now I am looking at the center band of my bra, and I'm going to put it right about there because any further than that gets uncomfortable. And down to the waist, and I am 6.5. Now, we want to know how far down we can possibly make our corset go. So you could go all the way down. However, I recommend stopping right about the bottom edge of the tummy. That is where it is the most comfortable at the longest point. So put your one at your waistband. And for me, this is about 7 inches down. So we will write 7. Let's go to the back measurements. Now we want to know how far down we want our corset to go or can go. So right to about the top of the bum is there. So again, place your one at the top of your waistband and go down. I'm going to bend it and put my finger where it belongs. And for me, that's about a 5.5. So again, depending on how high you want your corset to go, we need to take that measurement. So what's good to do is figure out where your wing bone is, and this is when it's really best to have somebody to measure for you. So right there is my wing bone. I'm going to put the one right underneath my wing bone, and I'm going to bring it just to the bottom of my bra, about there. I can only bring it up about 3 inches before it hits my wing bones and starts to impede motion. So then we have one final measurement that we need to do. It is called the lap measurement, and you'll be wanting to sit for this, and we are basically going to see how far down the 3/4 measurement on us, the 3/4 angle, can go before it impedes our ability to sit. So I am just putting my knee into a right angle, but again, it's better to sit in this instance. So bring the Bring the one up to your waistband. Bring the measuring tape down to the top of your thigh. For me, that's about a 6. That means I can, if I want to be able to sit in a corset, I can only bring this area down about 6 inches before it starts to impede my ability to sit. Couple notes. If you, by chance, have a bit of a tummy, it is a good idea to take your half circumferences as well, so from side seam to side seam. That way you can account for that in your drafting. It is also a good idea to make a note of if you have a sway back. If you have a very large backside, you'll want to take note of that when you are drafting, and I'll explain that later in our next drafting video. So that is how you take your measurements for an underbust corset. I will show you in the next video how to draft your corset. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!